Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis. It's in the county series, the state of Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, December the 1st, 2024, and the time 12:35 p.m. First, I thank you, my family, my support for your team. Encourage me to continue to keep myself employed in Memphis. Try to stay here, continue to further my education, more work hours online, continue to pursue my social research, being administrator, contract marketing. Present time, I took a break from going to school. In the future, I'm going to go back to school, earn my social degree, as well as other degree. Now I'm going to start my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine. I live right here in the city of Memphis, in the county series, state of Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, December the 1st, 2024. The time is 12:36 p.m. First, I thank you, my family, my support for you. Continue to encourage support, continue to keep myself employed. In Memphis, try to continue to further my education, more work hours online, continue to pursue my social research, being administrator, concentrate in marketing. Present time, took a break and going to school. In the future, I'm going to go back to school, earn my social degree, as well as other degree. Now, like I said, today is Sunday afternoon, in December the 1st, 2024. And as you know, this week, this past Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, here in the United States of America, we celebrate a holiday called Thanksgiving. And it's about the founding of this nation, the so-called pilgrims who came from Europe and settled in Jamestown, Virginia. The original inhabitants, the first Native Americans, indigenous Americans, who already live here, apparently had some type of gathering with the pilgrims, and that's the basis of Thanksgiving Day. So myself, I enjoy having a day off, not having to go to work and getting paid for it. And I hope and pray that everybody else had a safe and blessed Thanksgiving. Now, on today's video, I'm going to continue to pick up where I left off. But I'm going to continue to emphasize information that has been going over, because it's important. It's very important, because it's about the same subject. It pertains to the same subject. But what I'm going to do right now, BibleStudy2.com, the Bible verse of the day is coming from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. And it's coming from the book of Lamentations that's in the Old Testament, the 3rd chapter, the 22nd verse. And it reads, "Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail." And again, that's the Bible verse of the day. And we're reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible, the book of Lamentations that's in the Old Testament, the 3rd chapter, the 22nd verse. Let me scroll down. We have today's Bible reading coming from the book of Galatians that's in the New Testament, the 5th chapter, verses 16 through 26. Also, the book of Ezekiel that's in the Old Testament. Read chapter 1. And the book of Psalms that's in the Old Testament. Read verse 148. That's today's Bible reading. We have Bible study. And Bible study videos. We have featured verse topics, popular Bible verses. I'm going to have to move a little bit. All right, then we have popular Bible commentaries and today's inspiration, your daily verse, coming from the book of Romans. It's the 8th chapter, verse 28, and it reads, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." And again, that's today's inspiration, your daily verse, the book of Romans, the 8th chapter, verse 28. And again, we're on BibleStudy2.com, and we have available versions of the Bible. There's language as well, available versions of the Holy Bible, language as well as verse. Like best known translations, other translations, modern translations. Let me see. You have older translations, New Testament only, Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Dutch, and Chinese. So, like I said, we over here on BibleStudy2.com. We have available versions of the Holy Bible. Now let's click over here to BibleGateway.com. The verse of the day. And again, we're on BibleGateway.com. Reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. And it's coming from the book of John in the New Testament. The first chapter. Verses 1 through 2. Verses 1 and 2. And it reads, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning." All right, I got John 1. Oh, okay, hold on. Wait a minute. Okay, so they saying read John chapter, the first chapter now, verses 1 and 2, all the way through 14. All the way to 14. Okay, so let's read the full chapter. Okay, that's what it was. Okay. So we got to read the whole chapter. Starting with verses 1, we in the book of John, the first chapter. Verses 1 and 2. Right, because he was in the beginning. But they also said read through all the way to 14. So I'm going to read that again. "So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him. To those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. So that's the verse of the day. Reading from the book of John. It's in the New Testament. The book of John in the New Testament. The first chapter. Read verses 1 and 2 first, and then read all the way to verse 14. And we're reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. BibleGateway.com. Now, let's go to the names of God in the Old Testament. Jehovah Nissi, Adonai, Jehovah Rapha, Shaddai, Jehovah Roy, God the Shepherd. Ancient of Days, Jehovah, Elohim, El Elyon, Jehovah Shammah, El Roy, Jehovah Sabaoth, Elohim, Creator God, Mighty God, and the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, Jehovah Shalom, Jehovah Tsidkenu, Jehovah Jireh, El Shaddai, is Lord God Almighty, Alpha and Omega, the Lord who sanctifies. So those are names of God in the Old Testament. Now we have New Testament names of God. For example, Theos, that's the Greek term for God. Kyrios, the Greek term for Lord. Pater, the Greek term for Father. Abba, that's the Aramaic word for Father. And it was used by Jesus in Mark chapter 14, verse 36. Jesus, a name given to Jesus in Luke chapter 1, verse 31, and Matthew chapter 1, verse 21. Emmanuel, a name given to Jesus that has salvific attributes. Now, we know that when we be online, we have citations, we have footnotes, notes, we have references and sources. So now we have to deal with artificial intelligence. And so that was some of the information that was provided with, by artificial intelligence. Now we have biblical names of God. Adonai, Elohim, Jehovah Shammah, Jehovah Ra, the Lord my shepherd. El Roy, El Elyon, the God who sees. Elohim, Sabaoth, El Shaddai, Jehovah Nissi, Alpha and Omega, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Tsidkenu, Jehovah Nissi, the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, Father, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Shalom, El Elyon, the Lord who sanctifies, Almighty, Jehovah Sabaoth, El, Emmanuel. Those are names of God that are in the Bible, in the New Testament. Now, because of time, I'm going to say this. We know that been going over the Tetragrammaton. So I'm going to be, let me make sure we, the Tetragrammaton is the four-letter Hebrew theonym, transliterated as capital YHWH or capital YHVH. The name of God in the Hebrew Bible, the four letters written in red from right to left in Hebrew are Yod, He, Wah, and He. The name may be derived from a verb that means to be, to exist, to cause, to become, or to come to pass. While there is no consensus about the structure and etymology of the name, the form Yahweh is now accepted amongst almost universal among biblical and Semitic linguistic scholars, though the vocalizations of Jehovah continue to have wide uses. The books of the Torah and the rest of the Hebrew Bible, except Esther, Ecclesiastes, and with the possible instance of, in verse 8:6, the Song of Songs, contain this Hebrew name. Observant Jews and those who follow Talmudic Jewish tradition do not pronounce, nor do they read aloud proposed transcription forms such as Yahweh or Yehovah. Instead, they replace it with a different term, whether in addressing or referring to the God of Israel. Common substitutions in Hebrew are Adonai, literal translation, my lords, pluralis majestatis, taken as singular, or Elohim, literally gods, but treated as singular when meaning God in prayer, or Hashem, the name, everyday speech. Now, for time, that's the Tetragrammaton, and it's important to be aware of this information. Now let me scroll down. Etymology, vocalization, Yahweh, non-biblical text. We know that the Dead Sea Scroll, Hebrew Bible, Masoretic text, Leningrad, the Dead Sea Scroll, and other Hebrew and Aramaic texts of the Tetragrammaton and some other names of God in Judaism, such as El or Elohim, were sometimes written in Paleo-Hebrew script, showing that they were treated specially. Most of God's names were pronounced until about the 2nd century BCE. Then, as a tradition of non-pronunciation of the names developed, alternatives for the Tetragrammaton appeared, such as Adonai, Kyrios, and Theos. And now we're talking about these, the 4Q120, a Greek fragment of Leviticus 26, 2 through 16, discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls, Qumran, has Leo, the Greek form of the Hebrew Tetragrammaton. The historian John the Lydian, 6th century, wrote, the Roman Varro, 116 through 27 BCE, defining him that is the Jewish God, said that he is called Leo in the Chaldean mysteries. Van Kooten mentioned that Leo is one of the specially Jewish designations for God in the Aramaic Pepri from the Jews at Elephantine, so that Leo is an original Jewish term. All right. Let me scroll back on. Let's see. Now let me make mention of this. The adoption at the time of the Protestant Reformation of Jehovah in place of the traditional Lord in some new translation, vernacular or Latin, of the biblical Tetragrammaton stirred up dispute about its correctness. I want to mention that. I want to make sure because we're dealing with this Protestant Reformation mess and a bunch of nonsense. All right, let me click over here. All right, heresy in Judaism. Jewish heresy refers to those beliefs which contradict the traditional doctrines of rabbinic Judaism, including theological beliefs and opinions about the practice of halakha. Now, what is halakha? Halakha is the collective body of Jewish religious laws that are derived from the written and oral Torah. Alright? Jewish tradition contains a range of statements about heretics, including laws for how to deal with them in a communal context and statements about divine punishment they are expected to receive. Because that's what the Protestant heretics. Rabbinic definition of heresy. The Talmudic era. The Greek term for heresy originally denoted division, sect, religious, or philosophical party, is applied by Josephus to the three Jewish sects, Sadducees, Pharisees, and Essenes, in the sense of a schism to be deprecated. The word occurs in 1 Corinthians 11:19, Galatians 5:20, and particularly in 2 Peter 2:1. Hence, heretic in the sense of factious, Titus 2:10. The specific rabbinical term for heresies or religious division due to an unlawful spirit is manim, literally kinds of belief. The singular men for heretic or Gnostic is coined idiomatically like Gor and Amharitz. You have to see Gnosticism. The law, you shall not cut yourselves, is interpreted by the rabbis. You should not form divisions, but shall form one bond. After Amos 9:16 AV true. Besides the term men for heretic, the Talmud uses the words hizonim, outsiders, epicoros, and kofa Torah, or kofa ikar, he who denies the fundamentals of faith. Also poresh, me, dark, zebor, he who deviates from the customs of the community. Religious fundamentalists claim that all these groups are consigned to Gehinnom for all eternity and have no possibility of a portion in the world to come. The Mishnah in Sanhedrin 10:1 says the following: have no share in the world to come. One who says there is no resurrection of the dead, derived from the Torah, and one who says the Torah did not originate from heaven, and an epicoros. Rabbi Akiva says also one who reads external literature. This is explained as books of heretics. The biblical verse, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes, is explained as you should not turn to heretic views, minute, which lead your heart away from God. The Birkat HaManim is a curse on heretics. The belief that the curse was directed at Christians was sometimes used for persecution of Jews. Modern scholarship has generally evaluated that the Birkat HaManim probably did originally include Jewish Christians before Christianity became markedly a Gentile and, in the eyes of the rabbinic sages, idolatrous religion. So, heresy in Judaism. Now, Hippolytus of Rome was a bishop of Rome and one of the most important 2nd, 3rd century Christian theologians whose provenance, identity, and corpus remain elusive to scholars and historians. Suggested community include Rome, Palestine, Egypt, Anatolia, and other regions of the Middle East. The best historians of literature in the ancient church, including Eusebius of Caesarea and Jerome, openly confess they cannot name where Hippolytus, the biblical commentator and theologian, served in leadership. They have read his works, but did not possess evidence of his community. Photius I of Constantinople described him in his Bibliotheca as a disciple of Irenaeus, who was said to be a disciple of Polycarp. And from the context of this passage, it is supposed that he suggested that Hippolytus so styled himself. This assertion is doubtful. One older theory asserts he came into conflict with the popes of his time and seems to have headed a schismatic group as a rival to the Bishop of Rome, thus becoming an anti-pope. In this view, he opposed the Roman popes who softened the penitential system to accommodate the large number of new pagan converts. However, he was reconciled to the church before he died as a martyr. Starting in the 4th century, various legends arose by him, identifying him as a priest of the Novatian schism, or as a soldier converted by St. Lawrence. He has also been confused with another martyr of the same name. Pope Pius IV identifies him as Saint Hippolytus, Bishop of Pontus, who was martyred in the reign of Severus Alexander through his inscription on a statue found at the Church of St. Lawrence in Rome and kept at the Vatican as photographed and published in Bunsen. Now, let me click over here. Wait a minute. Writings. Controversy around the corpus of the writer Hippolytus. In the Victorian era, scholars claim his principal work to be the refutation of all heresies. Of his 10 books, Book 1 was the most important. It was long known. It was printed with the title Philosophical Hymena. Among the works of Origen, Books 2 and 3 are lost, and Books 4 through 10 were found without the name of the author in the monastery of Mount Athos in 1842. Emmanuel Miller published them in 1851 under the title Philosophina, attributing them to Origen of Alexandria. Recent scholarship prefers to treat the text as the work of an unknown author, perhaps of Roman origin. All right, let me see here. I'm going to click over here to refutation of all heresies. The refutation of all heresies. Also called the Elenchus or Philosophomena, is a compendious Christian polemical work of the early 3rd century, whose attribution to Hippolytus of Rome or an unknown pseudo-Hippolytus is disputed. It catalogs both pagan beliefs and 33 Gnostic Christian systems deemed heretical by the authors and or compilers, making it a major source of information on contemporary opponents of Christian orthodoxy as understood today. The first book, a synopsis of Greek philosophy, circulated separately in several manuscripts and was known as the Philosophomena, ancient Greek philosophical teachings, a title which some extended to the whole work. Books 4 through 10 were recovered in 1842 in the manuscript at Mount Athos, while books 2 and 3 remained lost. The work was long attributed to early Christian theologian Origen. So, anti-gang, anti-Gnostic, anti-Hazy also. Adversus Heresies, translated mean against heresy. Saint Athanasius, Saint Irenaeus, the Bishop of Alexandria, Saint Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyon, together with Saint Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch. They wrote a 5-volume book refuting Gnosticism, proving that Gnosticism was a heresy. Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, in his 39th festal letter, Easter letter, in the year 367 AD, banned all non-Christian writing. Saint Athanasius, Bishop of Alexandria, together with all the other bishops in the Catholic Church, they went around and collected all that Gnostic theologian writing and destroyed it. But some of that Gnostic theologian writing didn't get destroyed. For example, Codex, the Berlin Codex, and the Bruce Codex, and the Askew Codex, as well as in the 1945 the Nagamon Library. It didn't get destroyed either. Some people, the sohos and the frat bitches, some criminals, they've been going around using and misusing those codexes that didn't get destroyed to be self-destructive and destructive. They try to destroy nature, wildlife. They try to destroy the environment. They try to destroy the North and the South Pole. They going out in space, trying to destroy out in space. As well in St. Epiphanes of Salome, the Bishop of Cyprus, wrote a 3-volume book titled Panarian Greek, Panarian Latin, translated mean bread basket. The scholars at the colleges and universities around the world say that St. Epiphanes of Salome, the Bishop of Cyprus 3-volume book, is also adverse heresies against heresies. The Almighty conservative, vice lord, four corner hustle, the almighty black Prince Stone, the almighty Mickey Cobra Stone, Cracker, the almighty black disciple, Poppy, the almighty Bluefin black disciple, the black disciple, Lord Stone disciple, Gangster disciple killer, GDK, Glazed Donut killer, GDK, 7-Eleven, G killer, Goofy. See, it's important. See, when you think that you got away, see, like I've been saying all the time, even when I was in the penitentiary, then got out of prison in 2009, mom and dad and my brother came and got me from the prison, came on back to the house. I didn't like it then. I was mad then. I ain't want to talk to nobody because I knew it was wrong. I knew it was wrong. And then I was living out here on the street in the city of Memphis, just getting out of prison. Then wasn't working yet. But I was just walking around. Like I said, I wasn't talking to nobody. Just being with my mom and dad and just trying to get a direction, what direction is going in life. So, eventually I'm going to have to go get a job and everything. But I knew something wasn't right. Because first of all, when I was in prison, I knew that wasn't. Then I got out of prison, I wasn't going to say nothing to nobody. I wasn't talking to nobody, nothing. But I was looking at the people. I couldn't help but observe. I knew something wasn't right. Because it wasn't right in prison. I know it wasn't right out here on the street. So I know I didn't want to have nothing to say to nobody. Didn't want to have nothing to do with nobody. Because I knew it was wrong. I know it was wrong. But the thing I wanted to see, which I did finally see, that there was people walking around in this city, in this county, in the city of Memphis, in the county of Shelby, in the state of Tennessee, who wasn't even from the city of Memphis, wasn't even from Shelby County, wasn't even from the state of Tennessee. For some apparent reason, there were people walking from the East Coast somewhere, up in Ohio, and then not just the East Coast, but from the state of Ohio. And I know the state of Ohio is right next to the state of Pennsylvania. So I know, okay. But that's what I kept noticing. Right? And then the way people behave, the way you come to being around that city, and I'm like, who the hell? Who the hell told you that? Who walking around telling you that? To do that? So I knew then. I knew then. And see, my daddy was still alive then, because my daddy, he passed away in 2012. But I knew it wasn't right. And then my daddy passed away, and then I started really, getting out in the community. Because at first, before I even got a job, I went to this school, this little local school, trying, get myself some kind of trade or someone. But I knew, I knew something right about these people. That's what I knew. That for some apparent reason, there's people walking around this state, in this city, in this county, who not from this city, they not from this county, they not from this state, but they from the East Coast. I said, okay. But then once my dad passed away, I started. That's when I did when my dad passed away, I did my music video in 2000. That was like 2014. And see, that's what I was saying. See, it wasn't about this so-called blood gang, this Crip gang. See, I knew that's what people from the East Coast walking around talking about the blood gang, Crip gang. And then you got these local people walking around talking about the blood gang, Crip gang. See, I know. And then up there in Chicago, I know there's so-called gangster disciple in the black gangster new breed. See, I knew. But see, I also knew what the circumstance and what the situation is. First of all, I know there's a lot of people walking around who've been denied education, including myself. Denied education. Been miseducated and undereducated. You understand? And the information that, you get misled. People can claim that they telling you this and that, but they not telling you what's right. They trying to mislead you. And that's what people have been doing. See, I know that some guns thought they had got away, because I was watching you the whole time. When I got out of prison, like I said, I wasn't saying nothing to nobody, but people being in the city of Memphis, in the Shelby County, stay attention. First of all, you pay attention to your environment. And like I said, I knew something wasn't right, because when I was in prison, I knew it wasn't right. So when I got out on the street, I knew what I was seeing wasn't right. And you thought you got away with it. Just like when I was in prison. You thought you got away. Like I said, when I got out of prison, I was mad about it. That's what I was mad about. When I see people walking around in prison, then I got out of prison, I ain't want to say nothing to nobody. Because I know I was mad. I wasn't trying to be friends with you or with anybody. Because I knew what I saw and what I'm seeing is wrong. I know it was wrong. I know it was wrong. And so, I know that people thought you got away. The people on the East Coast, you thought you got away. See, when people behave in a certain way, see, then when you hear me say you thought you got away, that's what I was. See, you thought you got away. See, when you do the things you do, and when you say the things you say, you telling me. See, you saying this to me that you ain't had to worry about no retaliation. You ain't had to worry about no retribution. So you thought you got away. And so what I was saying, that at the time, the circumstances were different. For me, my circumstance, not just a general circumstance, but my personal circumstance. Because my dad was alive, my mom was alive. Things were different. Now, my dad passed away in 2014. In 2012. In 2012, my dad passed away. And then my mother, she just recently passed away about a year and a half ago. So the circumstances were different for me. My circumstance, my situation was different. But the circumstance, situation, like Lord Stone, disciple, I already knew. I already knew what the circumstance, the situation was. I already knew. So I handled things, first of all, the sorority and the fraternity. The Sohos and the frat bitches. What time is it? Yeah. The Soho and frat, I already knew. Because I seen that with my own two eyes. I know what the circumstance and situation, the sorority and the fraternity, the Sohos and the frat bitches. I know what the circumstance and situation. You going around lying. And you been going around lying. Because I knew, even when I was young, I had seen some individual walking around in the city of Memphis. I knew I knew the sorority fraternity. It ain't like I'm not aware of it. Because I know being in school, the school teachers and all this kind of stuff, so I knew the sorority fraternity. But then my opinion of the sorority fraternity, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you can be aware of something and you really don't pay no attention to it. You can just be aware of. That's when I was going. It ain't like I ain't never heard about no sorority fraternity. I really didn't pay no attention to it. Then when I got to high school, I kind of started noticing people. People like do things, and you really wasn't paying no attention to them in the first place. But for some parent reason, you try to walk around in the city. I heard somebody say something about some cute dogs, or what I'm saying. I really wasn't paying no looking for nobody or paying no attention, but I just knew in the city or the community that the sorority and the fraternity, the sohos and the frat bitch. But I still just live my own life, But I was aware of it. But then later on, when I got out of prison, I thought back about it. And when I was looking, like when I was in prison, I saw what I was seeing people do. And then I got out of prison, I was really mad. That was really what, because I knew, people were, depending on the sorority and fraternity. You know what I'm saying? Because you wouldn't be walking around on your own. Because I know these some going ignorant as a mug, man. I knew that. So I already knew that when I became, then you be looking at the gangster society, you be looking at the black gangster new breed, you be like, man, I know this mom. This some gun is not intelligent. This some gun do not have no education. So I knew then what is the sohos and the frat bitch, the sorority and fraternity. I said, you know what? You got to address that. You got to, because I know what the circumstance situation. That's what the circumstance situation. The sohos and the frat bitch. So I've been, and I'm still, I've been addressing it, and I'm still addressing the sohos and the frat bitch. You know what I'm saying? Because they've been going around misleading. But then the circumstances, then you got to deal with just people in general. And that's how people thought they got away. Just what I'm saying? That's how I'm like, this some gun thought he got away. And you see it. You can just look at people and see the things that they do. You can hear the things they say, and you can just be like, man, the motherfucker, this some gun, he really thought he got away. And I really just want, and that's when I made my music video. That's when I made my music video. And the way I did, I intentionally sought people out so I can, convey this message. And when I said, I used to talk about it too. When I did my video, so people can see it. But I talked about it too, to make sure that you get the message that this some gun over there on the East Coast, he thought he got away. He thought he got away. You see what I'm talking about? He thought you got away. And then when I saw about that blood gang, crip gang, I told you what I had done. That's what I told you to done. Because I seen what you were doing with this blood gang, crip gang. So when I made my video, I made sure you get the message. You get the goddamn message. You thought you got away. See, that's what you thought you got away. See, I was doing things online. I'm still doing things online to make this clear. You thought you got away. You thought you got away. Now, Twitter was Twitter then, but now it's X. See, the circumstance, situation, things are kind of, but still, you thought you got away. You thought you got away. And so, what I'm saying? And so, Lord Stone disciple, I was seeing people doing things and saying things just like these videos and all this Instagram. Hey, well, you thought you got away. You thought you got away. See, that was the circumstance, that was the situation. You thought you got away. See, in Chicago today, see, the circumstance, the situation ain't the same. But I still say, you thought you got away. Because when I seen Minister Rico, and some of the other older men. I seen Benny Lee. I seen Mr. Jimmy. See, you thought you got away. You thought you had got away. Now Waikita done got out of prison. See, the circumstance, situation, not the same. See, it was a time when Waikita was incarcerated. Even by the time I got out of prison, Waikita was still in prison. But he got out of prison. See, the circumstance, the situation has changed. Waikita's not in prison no more. He's a free man today. Jeff Ford's son. He is not in prison. He is out of prison. There was a time, even before, when I got out of prison in 2009, Waikita was still incarcerated. But now he has gotten out of the federal penitentiary. Jeff Ford's son. He is not incarcerated. See, the circumstance, situation, not the same. See, them bitches over there on the East Coast, see, you thought you got away. And that's the reason why I be saying, because I was out here on the street, even when I was in prison, dealing with being in prison, but then I got out of prison. That's the reason why I tell you, you thought you got away. You thought you had got away. And see, just like in Chicago, see some of the men in Chicago, the black disciples, they was in prison. Now they ain't in prison. Don Dirk went to prison. He's not in prison no more. He out here on the street, in the community. See, the circumstances, the situation not the same. But I was on the street. I'm out here. Been out here on the street since 2009. See, just like OG and Cowboy. Cowboy went to prison. He not in prison no more. OG Don Brick went to prison. He not in prison no more. Killer Red went to prison. He not in prison no more. See, this is how I know. When you say Lord Stone disciples, as well as some Mickey Cole. See, when you went to prison, some people not in prison no more. But this is what I've been saying all the time. You thought you had got away. Not just them bitches on the East Coast, but you thought you got away. You thought you had got away. You thought you had got away. Just like that goddamn gangster disciple and that black gangster new breed. You thought you had got away. I was watching you the whole time. You thought I was watching you. And that's the reason why I can say that. Because I was observing you in the penitentiary. And then when I got out of prison, I was watching you. See, first, I didn't have no computer. When I first got out of prison, I ain't had no computer whatsoever. I ain't got no phone, none of that. But see, then, so my observation started right here. Just being out of prison in the city of Memphis, in the county of Shelby, in the state of Tennessee, started right here. And when I observed the people in this environment, I knew you thought you got away. You thought you got away. See, sometimes all that little rap stuff you talk, see, sometimes people can do stuff and they do things for a reason. The reason why you thought you were doing it, because you thought you had got, it ain't thought that you was getting away, but you thought you had already got away. So you ain't have to worry about no retaliation. You ain't have to worry about no retribution. You ain't have to worry about no recompense. See, I observed these things. I knew you thought you had got away. But today, it's different. You don't have that same point of view. Because your dumb ass didn't know what you was talking about. Just like the word gang. You didn't know what you was talking about. Just like the word mob. You didn't know what you was talking about. But you trying to accuse other people talking about Elvin Pepperlo Perry. He didn't know what he was talking about. Gonna get it straightened out. And we're gonna make this clear. We're going to make it clear. You ain't nobody. You ain't no damn body. Ain't no damn gangster society. Ain't no black gangster newbie. You ain't nobody. You can stand your bitch ass out on the street with a gun, but you ain't nobody. And the same thing with that punk ass gang called the Blood Gang, the Crip Gang. You ain't nobody. You thought you got away. You thought you had got away. Especially you stinking ass hoes. But you better know this, goddammit. You thought it wasn't going to be no retaliation. You thought it wasn't going to be no retribution. You thought it wasn't going to be no recompense. You're a damn lie. Because Eric walking around. Eric walking around. That's a damn lie. It's going to be retaliation. It's going to be retribution. It's going to be recompense. Don't get your ass back. It's going to be payback. You think on that. You thought on that, goddammit. The circumstances and the situation, it ain't the same. Eric ain't going, man. Eric ain't going. Eric ain't gonna take it. I'm taking it. Talking about some Gnostic Christians. See, that's the reason why we going over this information right now. Right goddamn now. Because first of all, just like I said, Minister Rico and a lot of other men, as well as women. See, I know that in the past, when they was growing up, what the circumstances, the situation, the dirty sheets and the willing sheep. A lot of men and women in the black / African, but that first of all, denied education, miseducated, and undereducated. The dirty sheets and the willing sheep, they ain't do nothing wrong. They were right. They were right. The Imperial Chaplains, because that's what the dirty sheets and willing sheep, the Imperial Chaplain and the 14th Street Clovers. See, Jeff Fort, the Blackstone Ranger, and this other guy, what's his name? Eugene Harrison. See, this is when you get on to tell the truth. See, the people over there, up there in Ohio, see, this is how you know. They found that Nagmar Library in 1945. That Gnostic stuff. They didn't even have copy. They didn't even have their hands on the information. They didn't have no access to the Nagmar Library. But I guarantee you, what people walking around talking about. See, criminals, mainly the white people. They were talking about it. And so, the dirty sheets and the willing sheep, the Imperial Chaplain and the 14th Street Clovers. Then that broke down. That's where it come from. See, these criminals talking about their Nagmar Library, their Gnostic Christian stuff. See, you thought you had got away. See, that's what I be trying to show. I make sure that the men and the women that you see, I know what it was. I know. See, them other codexes, they had already found the Askew Codex, the Bruce Codex, and the Berlin Codex. Some leftover Gnostic theologian stuff, they had found it back in the 1700, 1800. When they found that Nagmar Library in 1945, they didn't have access to that information. See, just like when we were reading about it, it was people asking about it. So when people were asking about it, a lot of these damn criminals started going around talking about it. That was a way for them to try to talk about Gnosticism. Yeah, you talked about it. You talked about it to people who already were denied education, miseducated, and undereducated. That's the reason why you had all this backstabbing in Chicago. But like I told you, Evan Pepperlo Perry is real and true. Jeff Ford, real and true. That includes Mickey Caldwell. He real, man. He's true. See, you can't lie. You can't lie. King David Barsdale. He real. He's true. You can't go around and lie. It's just like Sam Cooke. Just like I've been telling you, Sam Cooke and Miss Barbara Campbell Cooke were living in Chicago. Sam, his family came from Mississippi. His mom and daddy came from Mississippi, brought the children up to Chicago. And that stupid woman out there shot and killed Sam. See, you misled that woman. You misled that woman. That's all there is to it, man. You misled that woman. She ain't had no business doing it. Wasn't no reason for that. Her and other people misled. So like I told you, man, when you thought you got away, see, this is how you know you thought you had got away. You thought you had got away. See, that's your opinion. See, that's your point of view. You think you doing something, you think you saying something, and then you thinking it won't be any punishment. That's what it means. You think you so confident you ain't have to worry about any retaliation, retribution, or recompense. And so that's what I've been telling you. That's not true. It's gonna be retaliation. It's gonna be retribution. It's gonna be recompense. Goddamn, it's gonna be punished. You're gonna get punished. Gonna get you back. You're gonna find out the hard way what payback means. I'm telling you. I don't even want to waste I ain't even finna go into no celebrity athletes and celebrity. But there again, see, when you thought you got away. When you thought you got away. You thought you got away. That's, you know what I'm saying? Celebrity athletes, celebrity entertainment. Talking about rap music and all that. Okay, well, you thought you got away. You thought you had got away. And that's the reason why I do the things I do. Because I'm telling your ass this. You ain't got away with nothing. It may have took a little time. It may have took a little time. But I know this. Today, beyond a shadow of a doubt, them bitches on the East Coast, you thought, whatever you thought you got away with, you ain't gonna, no, hell no. No, you ain't got away with talking about there ain't gonna be no retaliation. You ain't got away with talking about there ain't gonna be no retribution and no recompense because I'm walking around. No, hell no. You ain't finna tell me that. No. Talking about you ain't gonna get punished. No, I don't hear nothing you saying. Talking about you ain't gonna get no back. You a damn lie. It's gonna be payback. Cause see, this is what I know. Mr. Rico is in Chicago. I ain't finna let nothing like that happen. No. No. Mr. Jimmy and Benny Lee. Man, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest. When I seen Benny Lee made that video, he was talking about the history of the Vice Lord. I was glad that man did that. And he had his son with him. But I'm glad he did that. See, that's there again. See, this is how I know. This is how I know you thought you got away. This is how I know you thought you had got away. But like I said, when Benny Lee was talking about the history of Vice Lord, he made a video. I watched the video. I watched the bit, and he had his son with him. See, that's another reason why I do the things I do, because it makes me mad. It makes me mad. It really do. Because when I'm looking at him, then I look at other people. I want to kill your ass. You just don't know. I want to get you. You just don't know, man. You just don't know how mad Eric get. You just don't know. That's the reason why I talk the way I talk. Because I'm not one of them type of people, man. I know I got a bad temper. I know me. If it's anybody I know myself. I have to hold myself back. Because I know how mad I can get. And I know what I do to motherfuckers on these streets, man. I know. I'm not the one, man. I'm not the one to be playing with. And just like I said, when I seen Benny Lee, I know what the circumstance and the situation. When I hit these streets like I want to hit these streets, I'm knowing that whatever you thought that talking about some backstabbing, you ain't finna tell me nothing like that about no narcissism. You ain't finna never say that to me. Talking about you gonna stab Benny Lee in the back. Talking about no damn narcissism. You got me effed up, man. You is flat-foot nuts. You niggas is gone crazy. You niggas is fat-foot out your mind. Think you can play with me on these streets. You think you can play with me on these streets. Talking about some narcissism. That's the reason why I do the things I do. Because when I get mad, I'm going to be mad. Just like them bitches on the East Coast. I'm going to be mad. Because I'm mad now. And I know it ain't going to be no holding back. There ain't going to be no holding back. I'm going to be mad. And I want to be mad. See, Waikita not in prison no more. And when I'm seeing that, I know Waikita walking around in Chicago. And I talk the way I talk because I'm mad. Because I ain't finna let nobody take me for granted. Them bitches on the East Coast, you ain't finna never do that. You ain't finna never take me for granted. With them police cars riding around. And then call yourself gonna try to act tough. Now, I be calm, cool, and collect. I maintain my composure. I use my head. I make sure I think. Because I ain't the one to be sitting up in no damn penitentiary. But I know what I got to deal with. And I ain't finna let nobody on no East Coast. No. Waikita ain't got to take nothing off you, man. Ain't got to lose no sleep at night. Because I'm walking around. Waikita ain't got to worry about you, man, on the East Coast. You ain't nobody but a bunch of faggot-ass bitches. Tongue kissing other men. Like that TV show, The Wire. They do that. That's what they doing. Then trying to go out to California, Los Angeles, talking about they in the Blood gang, Crip gang. All right. Okay. All right. See, Don Dirt, he went to prison. He got out of prison. Him and some of the other men, just like Killer Red, went to prison, got out of prison. And then got out of prison, he done got old. Like a lot of men. Mr. Clifton got old. Everywhere they went, and then got old. But I do my reading for that reason. I don't leave none of these men and these women. Just like Mickey Cole. I don't leave them out here to be disrespected. I don't leave them out here to be disrespected. I know what the circumstance and situation. Since you want to leave them little pussy ass videos, what you call it, a vlog. Okay. See, a lot of these niggas, they ain't gonna survive. Cause Eric walking around. They ain't gonna survive. See, when you thought you got away, that's what it means. You thought you had got away. And I'm calmly telling you, it ain't no such thing as no narcissism. Calmly telling you, it's gonna come a day when I ain't gonna tell you. I'm gonna be showing you. There ain't no such thing, no narcissism. So whatever you thought you was getting away with, you gonna find out the hard way. There ain't no such thing. It's gonna come a day when I ain't gonna tell you. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you. See, just like I mentioned, I already told you once before. I already know that the Latin kings and queens and Trinitarios on the East Coast. So, like I told you, the circumstance and the situation. I know what the circumstance and situation. You thought you got away. Okay. The Latin kings and queens, they on the East Coast. Trinitarian, they on the East Coast. Okay. My peoples, okay. You thought you had got away. I'm going to continue to do my reading. It's going to come a day. Going to show your ass about you thought you got away. Talking about the blood gang, Crip gang, talking about the gangster disciple and the black gangster New Breed. All this depending on the people in the East, including the Vice Lord, the Stone, the Black Disciple, the Mickey Cole. See some of any and everybody worried about them bitches on the East Coast. It's alright. It's alright. It's gonna come a day. Gonna show you. Gonna show you. I'm an Army discharged veteran of the United States Marine Corps. You know what I'm saying? Like I told you, man. Hey, when it comes to explosives, first thing I always remember, man, you got to overcome fear. Once you get past fear, it ain't nothing that you can't, you can learn any and everything you need to learn. You got to first get past fear. Once you get past fear, you ain't got to worry about it. See, when it comes to the explosives, man, then you know it's all kind of anything. Any and everything can be an explosive. You can take a battery, you know what I'm saying? Because they tell you that it can explode. You can go to the store and buy some batteries, and they tell you on the packet, this thing can explode if it get hot. You see what happened to some of these phones? You see what happened to some of these phones? They told you that they're lithium battery. That some gun got hot. And what happened to the battery? It exploded. Same thing. See, any and everything can be an explosive. Only thing is, you got to know what you're doing, man. Because it's all kind of, it's all kind of explosive. But hey, first thing to do, overcome fear. Just overcome fear. And then always remember. See, it wasn't no reason, took my time. See, that's what it's about, time. See, them bitches on the East Coast, they thought they had got away. Time. That's all you got, time. Time. Now we're going to go over this real quick because we've been going over, so I don't have to really spend too much time on. But look, Jewish principles of faith. Judaism does not centralize authority in any single individual group. The formulation of principles of faith that are universally recognized by all branches of Judaism. All right, click on that. Branches of Judaism. Jewish religious movements, sometimes called denominations, include diverse groups within Judaism which have developed among Jews from ancient times. Today in the West, the most prominent divisions are between traditionalist Orthodox movements, including Haredi, ultra-traditionalists, and modern Orthodox branches, and modernist movements such as Reform Judaism, originating in late 18th century Europe, conservative Masorti, originating in 19th century Europe, and other smaller ones, including the Reconstructionists, and renewal movements. Which emerged later in the 20th century in the United States. In Israel, variations moderately similar, different from the West and having roots in the old Yishuv. And preach an early state Yemenite infusion, among other influences, for statistical and practical purposes. The distinctions there are based upon a person's attitude to religion. Most Jewish Israelis classify themselves as secular, traditional, religious, or ultra-religious. The Western and Israeli movements differ in their views on various issues, as do those of other Jewish communities. These issues include the level of observance, the methodology for interpreting and understanding Jewish law, biblical authorship, textual criticism, and the nature or role of the Messiah or Messianic age. Across these movements, there are marked differences in liturgy, especially in the language in which services are conducted, with the more traditional movements emphasizing Hebrew. The sharpest theological division occurs between traditional Orthodox and the greater number of non-Orthodox Jews adhering to other movements or to none, such that the non-Orthodox are sometimes referred to collectively as the liberal or progressive streams. Other divisions of Judaism in the world reflect being more ethnically and geographically rooted. Beta Israel, Ethiopian Jews, and Beni Israel among the ancient Jewish communities of India. Normatively, Judaism excludes from its composition certain groups that may name or consider themselves ethnic Jews, but hold key beliefs in sharp contradiction. For example, modern or ancient Messianic Jews. Okay, so those are the Jewish religious movements, or what they call branches of Judaism. Remains undefined. There is no central authority in Judaism in existence today, although the Sanhedrin, the supreme Jewish religious court, would fulfill this role if it were reestablished. Instead, Judean principle of faith remain debated by the rabbis based on their understanding of the sacred writings, laws, and traditions, which collectively shape its theological and ethical framework. The most accepted version in extent is the opinion of Maimonides. Maimonides' collection of fundamentals is found in his commentary to the Mishnah. He stresses the importance of believing that there is one single, omniscient, transcendent, non-compound God who created the universe and continues to monitor all creation to allow for eventual reward or punishment. Part of the list is the idea that God established a covenant with the Jewish people at Mount Sinai and revealed his laws and 613 commandments to them in the form of the written and oral Torah. In rabbinic Judaism, the Torah consists of both the written Torah, Pentateuch, and the tradition of oral law, much of it later codified in sacred writings, see the Mishnah or Talmud. Traditionally, the practice of Judaism has been devoted to the study of Torah and observance of its laws and commandments. In normative Judaism, the Torah and hence Jewish law itself is unchanged, but interpretation of the law is more open. It is considered a mitzvah, commandment to study and understand the law. The proper counterpart for the general English term faith, as occurring in the expression principle of faith, would be the concept of emunah. In Judaism, this word amen comes from this word and means I trust, believe. While it is generally translated as faith or trust in God, the concept of emunah can more accurately be described as an innate conviction, a perception of truth that transcends reason. Emunah can be enhanced through wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and learning of sacred Jewish writing, but emunah is not simply based on reason, nor can it be understood as the opposite of or standing in contrast to reason. Now, we've been talking about this, so I'm going to mention these. All right, the concepts of God, monotheism. Judaism is based on a strict monotheism and belief in one single, indivisible, non-compound God. All right, and God is the creator of the universe, nature of God, soul devotion to the Creator, revelation, scripture, Moses and the Torah, the origin of the Torah, prophecy, oral Torah, God's relationship with men. People are born with both a tendency to do good and do evil. Talking about the Yisahara and the Yisahatov, which is inclination or impulse to do good, and with the Yisahara, an inclination or impulse to do evil, and reward and punishment. Israel chosen for a purpose, the Messiah. All right, so let's click over here to now we over on dualism in cosmology. Now let me click over to Britannica right quick. Now we're talking about dualism in religion, the doctrine that the world or reality consists of two basic, opposed, and irreducible principles that account for all that exists. It has played an important role in the history of thought and of religion. Now we're talking about dualism. You're talking about in religion, dualism means the belief in two supreme opposed powers or gods or sets of divine or demonic beings that cause the world to exist. Now you have various distinctions may be discerned in the types of dualism in general. In the first place, dualism may be either absolute or relative. In a radical or absolute dualism, the two principles are held to exist from eternity. For example, in Iranian dualism, Zoroastrianism and Manichaeism, both the bright and beneficent and the sinister and destructive principles are from eternity. Now, in a mitigated or relative dualism, one of the two principles may be derived from or presuppose the other as a basic. For example, the Bogomils, a medieval heretical Christian group, held that the devil is a fallen angel who came from God and was the creator of the human body, into which he managed by trickery to have God infuse his soul. All right. Let me see. And then another, perhaps more important distinction is that between dialectical and eschatological dualism. Dialectical dualism involves an eternal dialectic or tension of two opposed principles, such as in Western culture, the one and the many, or idea and matter, or space called by Plato the receptacle, and in Indian culture, Maya. And then in the dialectical dualism, ordinarily implies a cyclical or eternally repetitive view of history. Eschatological dualism, a dualism concerned with the ultimate destiny of humanity in the world, how things will be in the last time. On the other hand, conceives of a final resolution of the present dualistic state of things in which evil will be eliminated at the end of a linear history constituted of a series of unrepeatable events instead of a cyclical repetitive one. All right, let me see here. Then you have historical varieties of religious dualism, such as in Egypt and Mesopotamia, Greece and the Hellenistic world, Iran. Then you have among South and Southeast Asian religions, such as in India, and then also in China. Then you have among religions of the West, dualism have appeared in Western religion chiefly under the impact of Gnostic influences. Judaism, no real dualism is found in Judaism except in the Gnostic and the theosophic forms of Jewish mysticism known as Kabbalah. So, straight to the point. The presence of a vigorous and universal monotheism implies not only faith in a single creative God, but also faith in a God who is the uncontested master of history, and neither Satan nor Belial detracts from this absolute monotheism. Then you have Christianity. In Christianity, dualistic concepts appear principally in its Gnostic developments, but even in the 2nd century Judaizing sect of the Incretites, which was not really Gnostic, there were dualistic aspects that had modified some tendencies of later Judaism. All right. Then you have now the Gnostic dualist view survived in late antiquity and into the Middle Ages. Say that again. The Gnostic dualist view survived in late antiquity and into the Middle, both in the East among the Mandeans, the Yazidi, and some extreme sects within the Shiite branch of Islam, and in the West among the Bogomils and Cathari. It is still present today in modern theosophy. Then you have among religions of modern indigenous peoples, and so on and so forth. All right. Now let's kick over to Wikipedia. Now we was on Britannica, so let's click over to Wikipedia. Dualism in cosmology. Dualistic cosmology is the moral or belief that two fundamental concepts exist which often oppose each other. It is an umbrella term that covers a diversity of views from various religions, including both traditional religions and scriptural religions. Moral dualism is the belief of the great complement of or conflict between the benevolent and the malevolent. It simply implies that there are two moral opposites that work independent of any interpretation of what might be moral and independent of how these may be represented. All right. Moral opposites might, for example, exist in a worldview that has one God, more than one God, or none. By contrast, duotheism, bitheism, or ditheism implies at least two gods. While bitheism implies harmony, ditheism implies rivalry and opposition, such as between good and evil, or light and dark, or some and one. All right, let me see. In theology, dualism can also refer to the relationship between the deity and the creation, or the deity and the universe. That's theistic dualism. That form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. Alternatively, in ontological dualism, the world is divided into two overarching categories. Within Chinese culture and philosophy, the opposition and combination of the universe, two basic principles are expressed as yin and yang. In our traditional foundational doctrine in Taoism, Confucianism, and some Chinese Buddhist schools. All right. Let me see here. Again, you got radical dualism and mitigated dualism. Theistic dualism. In theology, dualism can refer to a relationship between God and creation or God and the universe. This form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. For example, Zoroastrianism and Manichaeism. In Christianity, the dualism between God and creation has existed as a central belief in multiple historical sects. And traditions of Christianity include Marcionism, Catharism, Paulicianism, and other forms of Gnostic Christianity. Christian dualism refers to the belief that God and creation are distinct, but interrelated through an indivisible bond. However, Gnosticism is a diverse, syncretistic religious movement consisting of various belief systems, generally united in the belief in the distinction between a supreme, transcendent God and a blind, evil demiurge responsible for creating the material universe, thereby trapping the divine spark within matter. Gnosticism is not limited to Christianity and also incorporates beliefs from other Abrahamic traditions, such as early Jewish sects. All right. Now let's click over on this syncretistic. Syncretism is the practice of combining different beliefs in various schools of thought. Syncretism involves the merging or assimilation of several originally discrete traditions, especially in the theology and mythology of religion, thus asserting an underlying unity and allowing for an inclusive approach to other faiths. While syncretism in art and culture is sometimes likened to eclecticism, in the realm of religion, it specifically denotes a more integrated merging of beliefs into a unified system distinct from eclecticism, which implies a selective adoption of elements from different traditions without necessarily blending them into a new cohesive belief system. Syncretism also manifests in politics, known as syncretic politics. All right, let's scroll down to religious syncretism. Religious syncretism is the blending of two or more religious belief systems into a new system, or the incorporation into a religious tradition of beliefs from unrelated traditions. This can occur for many reasons, and the latter scenario happens quite commonly in areas where multiple religious traditions exist in proximity and function actively in a culture, or when a culture is conquered and the conquerors bring their religious beliefs with them, but do not succeed in entirely eradicating the old beliefs or especially practice. Religions may have syncretic elements to their beliefs or history, but adherents of so labeled systems often frown on applying the label, especially adherents who belong to revealed religious systems, such as the Abrahamic religions, or any system that exhibits an exclusivist approach. Such adherents sometimes see syncretism as a betrayal of their pure truth. By this reason, adding an incompatible belief corrupts the original religion, rendering it no longer true. All right, so we got the message. All right, so we're back over here on dualism in cosmology. All right, theistic dualism, then the Cathars, and Hindu, and then ontological dualism, and then in other religions. So we've been going over this. So let's click over here to mind-body dualism. In the philosophy of mind-body dualism denotes either the view that mental phenomena are non-physical, or that the mind and body are distinct and separable. Thus, it encompasses a set of views about the relationship between mind and matter, as well as between subject and object, and is contrasted with other positions such as physicalism and enactivism in the mind-body problem. All right, let me scroll right here. All right, dualism is closely associated with the thought of Rene Descartes, 1640, who holds that the mind is a non-physical and therefore non-spatial substance. Descartes clearly identified the mind with consciousness and self-awareness and distinguished this from the physical brain as the seat of intelligence. Hence, he was the first documented Western philosopher to formulate the mind-body problem in the form in which it exists today. However, the theory of substance dualism has many advocates in contemporary philosophy, such as Richard Swinburne, William Haskell, J.P. Moreland, E.J. Lowe, Charles Taliaferro, Sayed Jabbar Mosaviri, and John Foster. Dualism is contrasted with various kinds of monism. Substance dualism is contrasted with all forms of materialism. But property dualism may be considered a form of non-reductive physicalism. All right, you got types. Ontological dualism makes dual commitments about the nature of existence as it relates to mind and matter, and can be divided into three different types. Substance dualism asserts that mind and matter are fundamentally distinct kinds of foundation. Property dualism suggests that the ontological distinction lies in the difference between properties of mind and matter, as in emergentism. Predicate dualism claims the irreducibility of mental predicates to physical predicates. Right? So we got types, and you have and then you got arguments for and arguments against. All right, so let me scroll down here. Where is it? Trialism. Now, trialism in philosophy was introduced by John Cottingham as an alternative interpretation of the mind-body dualism of Descartes. Trialism keeps the two substances of mind and body, but introduces a third substance, sensation, belonging to the union of mind and body. This allows animals, which do not think like humans, to be regarded as having sensations and not as being mere automata. All right? And then let's go to the background. Cottingham introduced this term after noting that Descartes' account of sensation and imagination has placed his official dualism under considerable pressure. Partly as a result of this, we often see the emergence in Descartes' writings on human psychology of a grouping of not two but three notions. Not a dualism, but what may be called a trialism. According to Cottingham, Descartes added the third notion of sensation alongside thought and extension without proceeding to rifle it as a separable substance. Thinkers such as Daniel Garber and Thad Schmatz supported this by citing a letter in the correspondence between Descartes and Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia, which indicated that he changed his mind from a dualistic view. All right. Now let's go over this. Okay, yeah. The Reformation, also known as the Protestant Reformation and the European Reformation, was a major theological movement or period of series of events in Western Christianity. Don't forget that. That's very important. See, we talk about Europe. When we talk about the Protestant Reformation, what part of the world we talking about? West. We talking about in Europe. Of events in Western Christianity in 16th century Northwestern Europe that posed a religious and political challenge to the papacy and the authority of the Catholic Church. Towards the end of the Renaissance, the Reformation marked the beginning of Protestantism and in turn resulted in a major schism within Western Christianity. It is considered one of the events that signaled the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the early modern period in Europe. When the Reformation era ended, is disputed. When the Reformation era ended is disputed among modern scholars. Prior to Martin Luther and other Protestant reformers, there were earlier reform movements. Click that. That's very important. That's very important. Proto-Protestantism, also called Proto-Protestantism, refers to individuals and movements that propagated various ideas later associated with Protestantism before 1517. Which historians usually regard as the starting year for the Reformation era. The relationship between medieval sects And Protestantism is an issue that has been debated by historians. Successionism is the further idea that these proto-Protestants are evidence of a continuous hidden church of true believers despite their manifest differences in belief. Before Martin Luther and John Calvin, some leaders tried to reform Christianity. The main forerunners of the Protestant Reformation were Peter Waldo, John Wycliffe, and John Huss. Martin Luther himself saw it important to have forerunners of his views, and thus he praised people like Girolamo Savonarola, Lorenzo Valle, Wessel Gansfort, and other groups as prefiguring some of his views. And then we got some of these groups. It's a lot of them. Pre-Reformation movement, they have been argued with different degrees of anachronism and accuracy, have as having individual ideas later espoused by some Protestant groups include anti-Dicomarians. They go all the way back to the 3rd, 5th century. The Giovannian and Jovanesians, the 4th century. The Byzantine Iconism, Claudius of Turin, Galshak of Orbe, 9th century, Bertramnus, 868, excuse me. Okay, talking about the Eucharist. Who is this? Alphic of Encium. Berengar of Tours, and he argued against transubstantiation. Now, which transubstantiation is, according to the teaching of the Catholic Church, the change of the whole substance of bread into the substance of the body of Christ, and the whole substance of wine into the substance of the blood of Christ. All right. The Albigenses were a religious group that first appeared in Western Europe around the first half of the 11th century and were earlier called Cathars. The Cathars denied the incarnation, resurrection, Trinity, and held to dualist ideas. All right. The Bosnian Church. They were excommunicated by both the Eastern and Western churches. Patria, whatever it's in northern Italy. Peter Abelard. And then he eventually got declared a heretic. Peter Bruce was a French reformer who fought against the Catholic Church. He rejected infant baptism. Okay. Henry of Lucerne. Honor of Brescia. They hanged him in 1155. The Waldensians were a 12th century movement often viewed as a precursor to the Reformation. The Waldensians did not practice infant baptism, and they rejected the use of indulgences. The Waldensians also denied transubstantiation. The Waldensians wanted to follow Jesus in poverty and simplicity. The Waldensians later joined the Protestant Reformation. The Waldensian movement was started by Peter Waldo. They contested the institution of the papacy and the wealth of the church. However, they still took part in the sacraments of the Catholic Church. Fraticelli, or spiritual Franciscans, were an extreme group of the Franciscans in the 13th century. Marcellus of Padua, then William of Ockham, Thomas Bradwarden was an English man and teacher of Oxford. He believed in the doctrine of predestination. Thomas died in 3 predestination. Now, predestination in theology is the doctrine that all events have been willed by God, usually with reference to the eventual fate of the individual soul. Explanations of predestination often seek to address the paradox of free will, whereby God's omniscience seems incompatible whereby God's omniscience seems incompatible with human free will. So that's predestination. Gregory Remini, November, yeah. Then you got the Friends of God. They got executed for their criticism of the Catholic Church. Petrarch, Lollardy, 14th century movement that stressed the importance of Scripture. Then they denied transubstantiation and rejected the system of the papacy. They were said to have taught the absolute sufficiency of Scripture, maintaining it as the ultimate authority. They provided the view as an alternative view in the church. As an authority, the movement was started by John Wycliffe, and his doctrine anticipated those found in the Protestant Reformation. Now, some of these people have been talking about Scripture. So this stuff about sola fide, it did not start with Martin Luther about the Scripture. It didn't start with John Wycliffe either, because they were talking about this way back up here about the Scripture. I had to scroll all the way back up to the top again. And so, talking about this, what they call it, solely. Yeah, solely fighting. And so some of these people, they had said something about Scripture way before all this stuff came up. But that's where a lot of this stuff came from that Martin Luther was talking about, is because you had all these movements before 1517. And before John Huss and before John Wycliffe, even before John Wycliffe. And before Peter Waldo. Yeah, like this Marcellus of Padua. He was one of the people that was in 1270. It's sometimes called the forerunner of the Reformation. Marcellus believed that only the source of truth for a Christian are the scriptures. And he rejected the ultimate authority of the church. Marcellus believed that obedience to papal decrees is not necessary for salvation. He believed the papal system to be of human arrangement, not divine. The beliefs of Marcellus was largely in agreement with the Protestant reformers. And William of Ockham also did the same. Ockham stressed on scripture, anticipate Protestant views, and some see him as a proto-Protestant. See, some of these people was already saying these things way before. So let me scroll. All right. So we see this is what it means about the Protestant. You had all this stuff going on all these years before. All right, so let me get back over here. So you had the earlier reform movement within the Western Christianity. The Protestant Reformation, however, is usually considered to have started on 31st October 1570 with the publication of the 95 Theses, authored by Martin Luther. Over 3 years later, on 3 January 1521, Luther was excommunicated by Pope Leo X on 25 May 1521 at the Diet of Worms. Luther was condemned by the Holy Roman Empire, which officially banned citizens from defending or propagating Luther's ideas. Luther survived after being declared an outlaw due to the protection of Elector Frederick the Wise. The spread of Gutenberg's printing press provided the means for the rapid dissemination of religious materials in the vernacular. The initial movement in Germany diversified, and nearby other reformers such as Hodrick Zwingli and John Calvin with different theologies arose. In general, reformers argued that salvation in Christianity was a completed status based on faith in Jesus alone, and not a process that could involve good works, as in the Catholic view. Protestantism also introduced new ecclesiology. The Counter-Reformation was the Catholic reform efforts initiated in response to the Protestant Reformation and its causes. Alright. So let me scroll back over here. Now, let's touch on this Counter-Reformation. All right, let's click over here to encyclopedia.com because we want to say Catholic Reformation and Counter-Reformation. Encyclopedia.com. Scholars use the terms Catholic Reformation and Counter-Reformation to identify the changes in the Roman Catholic Church that occurred in the 1400s and 1500s. The phrase Catholic Reformation generally refers to the efforts a reform that began in the late Middle Ages and continued throughout the Renaissance. Counter-Reformation means the steps the Catholic Church took to oppose the growth of Protestantism in the 1500s. Okay. Now I'm not gonna go to detail because I don't have time. But we was on encyclopedia.com, and we want to make Catholic Reformation and Counter Reformation. There are two goals, but it's still the Catholic Church. All right, let's click over here on Wikipedia.com. The Counter-Reformation, also sometimes called the Catholic Revival, was the period of Catholic resurgence that was initiated in response to and as an alternative to the Protestant Reformation at the time. It is frequently dated to have begun with the Council of Trent, 1545 to 1563, and to end with the conclusion of the European Wars of Religion in 1648. Though this is controversial, the broader term Catholic Reformation also encompasses reforms and movements within the church in the periods immediately before Protestantism or Trent and lasting later, initiated in part to address the challenges of the Protestant Reformation. The Counter-Reformation was a comprehensive effort arising from the decrees of the Council of Trent. The effort produced apologetic and polemical documents, heresy trials, anti-corruption efforts, spiritual movements, the promotion of new religious orders, and the flourishing of new art and musical style. Such policies by the imperial diets of the Holy Roman Empire had long-lasting effects in European history, with exiles of Protestants continuing until the 1781 Patent of Toleration, although smaller explosions took place in the 19th century. Such reforms include the foundation of seminaries for the proper training of priests in the spiritual life and the theological traditions of the church, the reform of religious life by returning orders to their spiritual foundation, and new spiritual movements focusing on the devotional life and a personal relationship with Christ, including the Spanish mystics and the French school of spirituality. It also involved political activities and used the regional inquisitions. And primary emphasis of the Counter-Reformation was a mission to reach parts of the world that had been colonized as predominantly Catholic, and also tried to reconvert nations such as Sweden and England that once were Catholic from the time of the Christianization of Europe but had been lost to the Reformation. Various Counter-Reformation theologians focused only on defending doctrinal positions such as the sacraments and pious practices that were attacked by the Protestant Reform up to the Second Vatican Council in 1962-1965. All right, let me click colonize. All right, we over here on Counter-Reformation, then you click colonize. First wave of European colonization. The first wave of European colonization began with Spanish and Portuguese conquests and explorations, and primarily involved the European colonization of the Americas, though it also included the establishment of European colonies in India and in maritime Southeast Asia. During this period, European interest in Africa primarily focused on the establishment of trading posts there, particularly for the African slave trade. The wave ended with the British annexation of the Kingdom of Kandy in 1815 and the founding of the colony of Singapore in 1819. The time period in which much of the first wave of European colonization and other exploratory adventures occurred is often labeled the Age of Discovery. A later major phase of European colonization, which started in the late 19th century and primarily focused on Africa and Asia, is known as the period of New Imperialism. All right. Now we know we went over this on the other day. The role of the church. Religious zeal played a large role in Spanish and Portuguese overseas activity, while the Pope himself was a political power to be heeded, as evidenced by his authority to decree whole continents open to colonization by a particular king. The church also sent missionaries to convert the indigenous peoples of other continents to the Catholic faith. Thus, the 1455 papal bull, Romanus Pontifex, granted the Portuguese all lands behind Cape Bojador and allowed them to reduce pagans and other enemies of Christ to perpetual slavery. Later, the 1481 papal bull, Eternai Regis, granted all lands south of the Canary Islands to Portugal, while in May 1493, the Spanish-born Pope Alexander VI decreed in the bull Inter Cotera that all lands west of a meridian only 100 leagues west of the Cape Verde Islands should belong to Spain, while new land discovered east of that line would belong to Portugal. These arrangements were later precise with the 1494 Treaty of Tordesillas. The Dominicans and Jesuits, notably Francis Xavier in Asia, were particularly active in this endeavor. Many buildings erected by the Jesuits still stand, such as the Cathedral of St. Paul in Macau, in the Santísima Trinidad de Paraná in Paraguay, an example of a Jesuit reduction. And Spanish treatment of the indigenous population provoked a fierce debate at home. 1550-51, dubbed the Valladolid debate over whether Indians possessed souls, and if so, whether they were entitled to the basic rights of mankind. Bartolome de las Casas, author of a short account of the destruction of the Indies, championed the cause of the natives and was opposed by Sepulveda, who claimed Amerindians were natural slaves. And we see the school of Salamanca, which gathered theologians such as Francisco de Vitoria, 1480-1546, or Francisco Suarez, 1548-1617, argued in favor of the existence of natural law, which thus gave some rights to indigenous people. However, while the school of Salamanca limited Charles V's imperial power over colonized people, they also legitimized the conquest, defining the conditions of just war. All right. Let me see. All right, let me see. All right, we're going to click. All right, we already on the first wave of European colonization. We're going to click Age of Discovery. Okay. The Age of Discovery between 1488 and 1620, also known as the Age of Exploration, was part of the early modern period and largely overlapped with the Age of Sail. It was a period from approximately the late 15th century to the 17th century, during which seafarers from a number of European countries explored, colonized, and conquered regions across the globe. The Age of Discovery was a transformative period in world history when previously isolated parts of the world became connected to form the world system and laid the groundwork for globalization. The extensive overseas exploration, particularly the opening of maritime routes to the Indies and the European colonization of the Americas by the Spanish and Portuguese, later joined by the English, French, and Dutch, spurred in the international global trade. The interconnected global economy of the 21st century has its origins in the expansion of trade networks during this era. The exploration also created colonial empires and marked an increased adoption of colonialism as a government policy in several European states. As such, it is sometimes synonymous with the first wave of European colonization. The colonization reshaped power dynamics, causing geopolitical shifts in Europe and creating new centers of power beyond Europe. Having set human history on a global common course, the legacy of the age still shapes the world today. The European oceanic exploration started with the maritime expedition of Portugal to the Canary Islands in 1336. and later with the Portuguese discoveries of the Atlantic archipelagos of Madeira and of the Azores, the coast of West Africa in 1434, and the establishment of the sea route to India in 1498 by Vasco da Gama, which initiated Portuguese maritime trade presence in Caribe and the Indian Ocean. During the Age of Discovery, Spain sponsored and financed the transatlantic voyages of the Italian navigator Christopher Columbus, which from 1492 to 1504 marked the start of colonization in the Americas, and the expedition of the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan to open a route from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific, which later achieved the first circumnavigation of the globe between 1519 and 1522. These Spanish expeditions significantly impacted the European perceptions of the world. These discoveries led to numerous naval expeditions across the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Ocean, and land expeditions in the Americas, Asia, Africa, and Australia. They continued into the late 19th century, followed by the exploration of the polar regions in the 20th century. European exploration initiated the Columbian exchange between the Old World, Europe, Asia, and Africa, and the New World, the Americas, and Australia. This exchange involved the transfer of plants, animals, human populations, including slaves, communicable diseases, and culture across the eastern and western hemisphere. The Age of Discovery and European exploration involved mapping the world, shaping a new worldview, and facilitating contact with distant civilizations. The continents drawn by European mapmakers of the age developed from abstract blobs into the outlines more recognizable to us today. Simultaneously, the spread of new diseases, especially affecting American Indians, led to rapid population decline. The era saw widespread enslavement, exploitation, and military conquest of native populations, concurrent with the growing economic influence and spread of Western and European culture. Science and technology leading to a faster than exponential population growth worldwide. All right, let me see where we at. All right, let's click over to Catholic Church. Let me see. I'm going to have to go back. Oh, okay, there it is. Okay. Catholic Church and the Age of Discovery. All right. The Catholic Church during the Age of Discovery inaugurated a major effort to spread Christianity in the New World and to convert the indigenous peoples of the Americas and other indigenous peoples. The evangelical effort was a major part of and a justification for the military conquest of European powers such as Portugal, Spain, and France. Christian missions to the indigenous peoples ran hand in hand with the colonial efforts of Catholic nations. In the Americas and other colonies in Asia and Africa, most missions were run by religious orders such as the Franciscans, Dominicans, Augustinians, and Jesuits. In Mexico, the early systematic evangelization by Mexicans came to be known as the spiritual conquest of Mexico. Antonio de Montesinos, a Dominican friar on the island of Hispaniola, was the first member of the clergy to publicly denounce all forms of enslavement and oppression of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Theologians such as Francisco de Vitoria and Bartolome de la Casca drew up theological and philosophical basis for the defense of the human rights of the colonized native population, thus creating the basis of international law, regulating the relationship between nations. Important contemporary ecclesiastical documents taking a strong stance on enslaving or despoiling the indigenous peoples of the Americas was the ecclesiastical letter Pastorale Officium and the superseding encyclical Sublimis Deus. In the early years, most mission work was undertaken by the religious orders. Over time, it was intended that a normal church structure would be established in the mission areas. The process began with the formation of special jurisdictions known as apostolic prefectures and apostolic vicarates. These developing churches eventually graduated to regular diocesan status with the appointment of a local bishop. After decolonization, this process increased in pace as church structures altered to reflect new political and administrative realities. All right. So like I said, we were on last Sunday, we know that Thanksgiving was coming. See, these things are important when you're talking about things that, just like this so-called Gnostic Christian stuff, all this ignorant Gnostic Christian nonsense. And when you hear about the conquest, see, that Gnostic Christian nonsense was in Europe during that time. That's where all these Gnostic Christian groups, and then we talking about the age of discovery. See, some of them stupid people end up coming over here from Europe to America. See, that's the reason why. What's the man's name? What's his name? That's the reason why men like, he's not the only one. Antonio D. Montesinos had to denounce all forms of enslavement and oppression of indigenous peoples of the Americas. And then what's his other theologians such as Francisco de Vitoria and Bartolome de las Casas drew up theological and philosophical basis for the defense of the human rights of the colonized native population, thus creating the basis of international law regulating the relationship between nations. See, that's why men had to do these things. Because you had all this syncretizing in this Protestant Reformation nonsense. See, these are the reasons why this is important, why I do the things see, when you hear something about, like, for example, sola fide, and when you talk about there's some kind of doctrine, see, you had to, you know what I'm saying? You had to question this stuff. What is you talking about? What is you talking about scripture only? What you mean? See, you had to get into this stuff. You can't take what people say as being right. People be trying to lie to you. People be trying to deceive you. That's the reason why I do the things I do. Because I know that in the past, this is what happened in Chicago as well as in other places around the United States of America. You had black/African American who were first being denied education. Then when you get educated, you get miseducated. And not only miseducated, but you get undereducated. That's the reason why it's important. Now we're gonna get to the Great Awakening, but we just want to go over this information because we went over, because it's important. See, it's still the same. It's still the same objective. Is to make this clear that whatever you thought you got away with on the damn East Coast of the United States of America, you're a damn lie. See, this is important. When we talk about the pilgrims and all that, see, it's still talking about the Protestant Reformation and the Counter-Reformation, even today. And talking about some Gnostic Christian. See, this is what you thought you was getting away with. You thought you got away. You thought you got away. Just like the Blood Gang, the Crip Gang. You thought you got away. It's the same thing. The so-called gangster disciple, the so-called black gangster new breed. You thought you got away. All right, I was just looking at, I'm still on the same page. I scrolled down to the bottom. When you're on this page, what we at? We on the Catholic Church and the Age of Discovery. All right, so we scroll down past background, the Age of Discovery. All right, keep scrolling. The versus School of Salamanca, conversion and assimilation, religious orders, empires and missions, secularization and decolonization. When you see emergence of the American Catholic Church. In the late 18th and early 19th century, the Roman Catholic Church experienced unique difficulties within the United States of America. Unlike all Protestant churches in America, the Roman Catholic Church depended for its identity upon keeping doctrinal and administrative unity with a European-based authority. The papacy was cautious of the freedom found in the United States as it showed similarities to the attitudes behind the French Revolution. The papacy wanted to preserve the hierarchy of the church in the United States. At this time, the Catholics were chiefly located in Pennsylvania and Maryland and were greatly influenced by their Protestant neighbors. They, too, wanted a church that empowered the laity. In 1788, John Carroll was appointed the first bishop of the United States. He struggled to balance the desires of the U.S. trustees to adapt and empower the laity and hold church property with the request of the bishops and hierarchy overseas to preserve the doctrine. This controversy ran from approximately 1780 to 1850. In the end, the power and authority were too differential and the bishops won. This marked the creation of the American Catholic Church with the laity subordinate to priests and bishops. This system remained until the mid-20th century. Then you have the beginnings of the American Catholic school system. See, this is important. You have Protestant and Catholic in the United States of America. You have two different ideologies. Two different ideologies, not the same. All right, beginnings of the American Catholic school system. In the early to mid-19th century, schools in the United States were greatly influenced by Protestantism. This created difficulties with American Catholics. They challenged the singing of Protestant hymns and reading of the King James Bible in the classroom. Some school boards made changes to be more non-denominational. Tensions were great during this time period as Americans were already fearful of immigration and Catholics. After a number of struggles for a variety of reasons, American Catholics began creating their own schools in the 1840s. Archbishop at the time, John Hughes, insisted that Catholic education was the primary way to preserve proper Christian teaching. He cited education at a young age, prompting the reason and experience necessary for a strong religious background. He called American Catholics to multiply our schools and to perfect them. By 1852, the bishops recommended Catholic children should attend only schools that were under church control. Then you get to the 20th century. What time is it? Okay, let's read this little part here. The Catholic faith also became integrated in the industrial and post-industrial middle class as it developed, in particular through the lay movements created following the 1891 Rerum Novarum encyclical enacted by Pope Leo XIII, in which insisted on the social role of the Roman Catholic Church. New ceremonies appeared throughout the 20th century, such as Bendicia Constantino Centoro, known as the Nino Bendicia, 1898 to 1938 in Mexico, the Santa Muerte in Mexico, who has been attacked by the Catholic Church as being a pagan figure, or the Fuente Correa in Argentina. The latter's pilgrimage site was visited by 700,000 persons in 2005. Then you have legacy and issues, 20th century missions. Then you have ethnocide and challenges. And so when you be on this page, you pay attention to this information. This is very important. Very important. Now let's click over here before I end today's video. Let's go over here to the Great Awakening. Let me see here. Like I said, before I end today's video, we're gonna touch on this. Then we're gonna start getting into it. The Great Awakening. The Great Awakening was a series of religious revivals in American Christian history. Historians and theologians identify 3 or sometimes 4 ways of increased religious enthusiasm between the early 18th century and the late 20th century. Each of these Great Awakening was characterized by widespread revival led by who? Evangelical Protestant ministers. Say that again. Each of these Great Awakenings was characterized by widespread revival led by who? Evangelical Protestant ministers. One more time. Each of these Great Awakenings was characterized by widespread revivals led by who? Evangelical Protestant ministers. A sharp increase of interest in religion, a profound sense of conviction and redemption on the part of those affected, and an increase in evangelical church membership, and the formation of new religious movements and denominations. George Whitefield, Jonathan Edwards, and Gilbert Tennant were influential during the First Great Awakening. Some of the influential groups during the Great Awakening were the new lights and the old lights. The first great awakening in the American colonies is closely related to the evangelical revival in the British Isles. Pulling away from ritual and ceremony, the Great Awakening made religion more personal by fostering a sense of spiritual conviction of personal sin and need for redemption, and by encouraging introspection and a commitment to personal morality. It incited rancor and division between traditionalists who insisted on the continuing importance of ritual and doctrine, and revivalists who encouraged emotional involvement and personal commitment. It had a major impact in reshaping the Congregational Church, the Presbyterian Church, the Dutch Reformed Church, and the German Reformed denomination, and strengthened the small Baptist and Methodist denominations. It had less impact on Anglicans and Quakers, unlike the Second Great Awakening, which began about 1800 and reached out to the unchurched. The First Great Awakening focused on those who were already church members. It changed their rituals, their piety, and their self-awareness. So you have the First Great Awakening, then you have the Second Great Awakening, and then you had the Third Great Awakening, then you had the Fourth Great Awakening, and so on and so forth. But we know who it is. It's the Protestants, not the Catholics. It's the Protestants. We're going to get a little more in depth in this. So like I said, we're going to get a little more in depth in this. It's important. And so, and then, like I said, we got time. We got time. And so, I'm going to get ready to end today's video. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county seven, is in the state of Tennessee. I thank all my fans, my support, for your continued encouragement support. And like I said, I hope and pray that everyone here in the United States of America, no, I still have goodwill. Look, Thanksgiving, irregardless of the controversy behind it, I still want to say I hope and pray that each and every one had a safe and blessed Thanksgiving celebration. And we know Christmas and New Year's is coming up, so and then we know we got something else coming up. We got this daggone stuff about this politics, the election. Oh boy. We're gonna have this inauguration of this convicted felon. And gonna be 4 years of this mess, man. But we'll get through it, yeah. We're going to get through it. Now, look, we want to continue to pray, hope and pray. We got wars being fought all over the world. We're going to continue to pray for peace, because there are wars being fought all over the world. And we pray for peace. And so, like I said, I'm gonna get ready to end today's video, and we'll come back on my next video. We're gonna stay on this thing. We're gonna come back to the we're gonna stay on this Prophet and Reformation stuff, because we need to make sure that people try to mislead you. And so when you find out what the issues of the Protestant Reformation are, and then you talk about these earlier reform movements, and people bringing up these things like about scripture and and predestination, and about transubstantiation, and about trying to bring up issues about the Catholic Church, period. And so whoever them individuals were, they want nobody to be, like people can bring up issues on them, And so that's what the Catholic Church did. That's really what the church did. The church opposed even those earlier reform movements, and then let's not forget about all those heresies that the Catholic Church really stood up against. And we want to make sure on my next video, I want to make sure that we mention all those heresies that the Catholic Church is a lot of. Okay, before I'm getting ready to end the debate, we're going to touch on this right quick. The list of heresies in the Catholic Church. In this vision of heresy, the Catholic Church makes a distinction between material and formal heresy. Material heresy means, in effect, holding erroneous doctrines through no fault of one's own due to inculpable ignorance, and is neither a crime nor a sin, since the individual has made the error in good faith. Formal heresy is the willful and persistent adherence to an error in matters of faith on the part of a baptized person. And such, it is a grave sin and involves ipso facto excommunication. A Catholic that embraces a formal heresy is considered to have automatically separated his or her soul from the Catholic Church. Here, matters of faith means dogmas which have been proposed by the infallible magisterium of the church. And in addition to this intellectual error, pertinacity in the will and maintaining it in opposition to the teaching of the church must be present. Now we got all these heresies: adoptionism, Apollinarianism, Arianism, Colorinianism, Docetism, Luciferians, and so on. We just want to make sure we see what it is. Tritheism, and then Gnosticism refers to a diverse syncretistic religious movement consists of various belief systems generally united in the teaching that humans are divine souls trapped in a material world created by an imperfect God, the demiurge, who is frequently identified with the Abrahamic God. Gnosticism is a rejection sometimes from an ascetic perspective and vilification of the human body in the material world or cosmos. Gnosticism teaches duality in material matter versus spiritual or body, evil versus soul, Good. Gnosticism teaches that the natural or material world will and should be destroyed. Total annihilation by the true spiritual God in order to free mankind from the reign of the false God or demiurge. So we're gonna stay on all these things. Then you got other early church heresies, medieval heresies, Renaissance, Reformation. And during the Reformation, you had Protestantism. We're gonna get on this. This is what reason why it's so important. And then John Calvin. These are heresies in the church sets declared to be heretical by the Catholic Church. Protestantism. And then in the 19th century, Americanism, Jehovah's Witnesses, modernism, Mormonism, 20th century movements, community of the later of all nations, positive Christianity, reincarnationism, and so on and so on. So we're gonna come back on this. Oh yeah. This is at the very heart of the problem. So we're dealing with the list of heresies in the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church. There's one thing about it though, the Catholic Church ain't bagged down none of that mess. From none of it. And when the Catholic Church address these issues, they declare you a heretic. And then they'll sit there and go through the process of showing you that you're a heretic. So I'm going to get ready to end today's video. Like I say, all this information, we're going to come back to it. So you take care of yourself and wish each and every one of you very best.